and I hit it now. All right, I believe we are live. What is going on, everybody? This is Rand L. Thor 19, the man with the million, and I'm back at you again with another Xbox 2 podcast featuring the one, the only Jez Corden of Windows Central, who I'm sure you just heard the glass clink. He got some whiskey, and we're going to have a good show. What's going on, Jez?
I'm all good, man. It's Easter weekend, so I've got a day off on Monday, so that's fun. I haven't had a day off for quite a long time. Gonna try and hit that backlog or make it bigger, one of the two.
Right.
But yeah, pretty good, man. How are you, babes?
Oh, Jez, you have no idea. You want to know why I'm doing so good? You want to know why? Final Fantasy VII Remake is here.
Oh, that small indie game. I've heard of that.
Yeah, that really small indie game. So just want to give a shout out to everybody in chat, especially Fame. He recently just beat the... I can't even say the word because, YouTube will demonetize it, but he beat the virus, Jez. And he's here. He's here. Congrats to him, Fame. I hope you're doing well. Shout out to everybody else in chat, like Xbox One and Gunstar, Joe Bailey. Appreciate you guys being here. Greg E3, Greg. Darge Knight. I'm sure Darge is probably here somewhere, just listening. But yeah, crazy stuff going on. Hope everybody is doing well. And look, we already have someone saying that Final Fantasy games suck balls. Like, what?
Oof, that's mean.
I mean, I like Final Fantasy. It's one of my childhood favorites. It's one of the most important games I've ever played to me in my life. So I'm excited to play it. But, we got a lot here to talk about. And let me know if the volume's good. Should be good on my end, but make sure it maybe, if Jez is too loud or if I'm too loud or whatever, I'll turn up and turn it down. So, we appreciate everyone being here. How's your week going, Jez? Pretty good?
Pretty good, man. Just working.
Just
playing
working?
Games, rocking and rolling. Same old.
Looking
forward to this week's podcast.
Yeah, Friday. We were going to do it Wednesday, but you were a little sleepy.
I was. But today I've had a nap, so I'm full of beans.
Yes. Jez has had a nap, and he's putting some whiskey in him, so the show's going to be pretty good. We do have a bunch of topics here to talk about. Inside Xbox, the PS5 DualSense, man. Sony just, out of nowhere, drops the controller and kind of took all the hype surrounding Inside Xbox away. Not really saying that there was a lot of hype surrounding Inside Xbox because it's a small show, but that's all. I know. But it's like, that's all anybody wanted to... We're going to talk about that controller. The One X is $299. Does that kind of imply Lockhart's coming? Of course, there's the huge tease that the one and only Shinobi 602 put out on Reset Era that everybody ran with. I saw a bunch of articles. Big sci-fi worlds, or gorgeous fantasy worlds, big sci-fi, reboots. We're getting close. We're getting close to that time. The E3 replacement, when all that stuff can be. So, we got a whole bunch of stuff here to talk about. And we got a shout out to the Darja Knight here for the super chat. He says, sorry, I'm late, very tired. Stay safe, people. Yes, everybody stay safe. And what do you want to talk about first? Well, obviously, the games. So
what have you been playing? What you've been playing? You've been playing Final Fantasy, and I've completed it. I completed it a week ago.
I know.
It's really cool to see everyone else getting their hands on it now.
So what have you been playing?
Well, Final Fantasy VII.
And you can talk about it now, right?
Yeah, I couldn't talk about it last week. I loved it. I gave it. It's my first ever PlayStation game review that I've done. I loved it, cover to cover, brilliant. I'm a big fan of the original. I'm still skeptical about some of the stuff, like the episodic nature of it, the new story beats. I'm still skeptical about that stuff, but honestly, it didn't detract from the overall experience. It's a 40-hour long, full-blown RPG, seeing every area reimagined in incredible detail. The combat system, really awesome and fun and infectious. The boss battles are some of the best boss battles I've ever seen in a game. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I'm willing, because of how good it was, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on some of the other stuff. But, I think it's going to end up being a bit controversial with some longtime fans. Without saying any spoilers.
You've been saying that the ending is something.
Well, it's not so much the ending, but it's the way it leads into the next.
No spoils. No spoilers. I don't want to get spoiled.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. It's not the ending. It's not like, obviously it's not the ending because there's going to be more games, right? They've already confirmed that, so that's not a spoiler. But I'm just skeptical about the episodic format. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we did wait a long time to get this one, and how many more games are we going to have to wait, and how many more years are we going to have to wait through to see the final completion of Final Fantasy VII Remake, right?
Yes. But, like I say, the graphics were incredible. The combat was amazing. All the little details, like things I couldn't even remember from a kid. And Final Fantasy VII is a game I've completed about 10 or more times, And like I was like, oh my god, I completely forgot about that monster. Or oh my god, I can't believe they've turned this little monster into a boss fight. Or oh my god, this mini game is now like an important part of the level and stuff like that. Like they managed to include everything. It's not like Resident Evil 3 where they cut out a whole boss fight and they cut out 2 major areas from the original. They cut out nothing. Like it has literally everything from the original and more. So I'm excited that they were able to do that and that they bothered to do that. They could have just banked on the name, done like a half-assed job, made it 20 hours and called it a day, and it still probably would have sold just because of the brand. But you could tell they put a lot of love into that game. That you can really tell. And as a big Final Fantasy VII fan, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so I started it last night after I got my first win in Call of Duty Warzone with the boys. The boys are back in town, the PUBG squad. Maka, Magic, Gopher. They added squads to the Season 3 of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And it's so freaking good, Jez. And we've been playing, and we got our first win. I didn't do particularly too well. There's a screenshot of how horrible I did on Twitter. People are making fun of me, and rightfully so. I had 1 kill and 250 damage. It was a bad game for me, but it wasn't a bad game.
You saying that you're getting carried?
I got carried that game. It was not a good game for me. It was not. But everybody else did good. We got the win, and then I went to play Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I kind of got a little bit... I started feeling a little bit emotional. I didn't cry or anything like that, but like listening to...
I will say, Rand, Final Fantasy VII Remake actually did make me tear up.
I like sitting at the main menu, listening to the prelude, the remix prelude of Final Fantasy VII. I sat there and I just let it play like 3 times over. I just let it run because...
Dude, the music is so good.
And I probably got to explain it. And obviously, if you guys are just filing in, we appreciate you being here. Hit the like button. Share this out because YouTube does a terrible job of notifying subscribers and everybody out there, right? God, I sat there and I just let the music wash over me because Final Fantasy VII is one of my most important games. Like, you have a list of like the best games you've ever played, right? But then you have a list of maybe the most important games you've ever played. And Final Fantasy VII, like the original, I'm not going to say it's one of the best games I've ever played, because it's probably not. There's other RPGs that were better. But for that time and where I was in my life, it is one of the most important games I've ever played. So it does hold that kind of spot in my heart, that nostalgic feeling that... One of the games I played cover to cover 5 or 6 times, thinking to myself, oh my god, and every single gen we get to, it's like, man, what would this look like on current hardware? And then you finally get to the PS4 and Xbox gen, and there was always rumors that it was going to get remade. And here it is. They announced the remake, a full-on remake, and then 5 years later, it's here. Like... I'm in chapter 2. I stopped playing it last night because I didn't want to. I couldn't play it for long because I had to go to bed. But like after the podcast, it's nothing but just mainlining Final Fantasy VII, right?
Yep.
So, and for those wondering, the footage. I have 2 games that I played this week because usually I put footage of the games I play. The footage this week is of an indie game I played called The Complex. And yeah, you know, we'll talk about that in a minute. And the other one that you'll see is Resident Evil 3. But I am really excited to get into Final Fantasy VII, delve into it, spend 40 hours with the game, potentially play it again when it comes to Xbox, probably in a year, maybe for the next gen consoles. I don't know if you saw that thank you video that they posted yesterday. It had, like, at the bottom, gameplay captured on PC.
Yep.
I wonder if that's coming to the PC at some point, you know? So
yeah, I wonder too.
I wonder if it's coming to other platforms. We discussed this last week. Of course, it's coming to PC, and it's definitely coming to Xbox. Sony wouldn't pay for it if they didn't want to keep it away from the other console. I started a little bit of Ace Combat 7, but I haven't really got much far in it yet. I think I played it for like 5 minutes and turned it off. There's just too much going on right now. But yeah, what else have I been playing? Resident Evil 3. Finished Resident Evil 3. I gotta talk about that because I don't necessarily agree with the reviews, because I think Resident Evil 3 is freaking great. It's different than... Go ahead.
The reviews were mostly positive, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't... Look, I'm not saying Resident Evil 3 is as good as Resident Evil 2, because it's a completely different animal. Like, Resident Evil 2 is very much survival horror. But Resident Evil 3 is very much what Resident Evil 3 was, the original, which is more of like action horror. Right? It's much more of an fast-paced action game with some large set pieces and big boss fights, rather than that kind of puzzle-solving, kind of slow-paced, inventory management, making sure you have just the right amount of ammo, because in this game there are hardly any puzzles. I think that there's like none, right? There's like maybe the subway station, which isn't... Would you even... Yeah.
So it's like, I wouldn't even call puzzles at that point.
And it's you get all the weapons, you get a whole bunch of ammo, and it's really just from the first second of the game, essentially, when Nemesis shows up, it's just balls to the wall. Just nonstop. Yep. And I don't know, like I kind of went in expecting not to like it as much, but I really did. And I started a second playthrough. I beat it on standard. I started a playthrough on assisted because I wanted to go for the achievement of not using the item box and get the collectibles and the like the dolls, and then get enough money to buy the infinite rocket launcher, and then go through the other difficulties with the rocket launcher if I have time. Because after Final Fantasy VII, what's coming out? Surprise! Like, we were expecting Last of Us to come out at the end of May, and then Ghost at the end of June, but sure as hell doesn't seem that, well, at least Last of Us ain't coming out. I mean, I know there's Minecraft Dungeons, but...
That's May. Gears Tactics is the next big-ish one.
Yeah, but here's the thing with Gears Tactics. It looks really cool. XCOM games are not my thing, and I'm a little bit... How do I say this? I don't like the fact that it's not on Xbox. I'll just be upfront about it. I've said this before.
I forgot that.
I've said this before on the podcast. If your company strategy is, hey, we want you to play the games that you want to play on the device you want to play it on with the people you want to play with, it seems that it's always like it seems that it works for PC, but it doesn't work for Xbox. Like,
yeah, I feel that.
So like Gears Tactics, I don't like, if you're gonna tell me that games should be everywhere and you should, like, whatever device you want to play Gears Tactics on, I'd be like, well, I want to play it on my Xbox. Well, you can't, because we have some pseudo PC master race marketing we need to get across, so the PC crowd builds it and we can maybe pump up our PC Game Pass numbers. You know, it's a little bit disappointing, I will say. Like, they're probably holding it back for, you know, maybe some of the, you know, the situation with the virus might have impacted development, but as far as we know, it was never planned to launch on Xbox Day 1. It probably was always planned to come, you know, towards the launch of the new consoles. I just think it's a little disappointing, that's all.
Nah, I feel that, and I agree. I do think it's... I mean, you have to wonder, right? Because it's kind of like, would the simultaneous launch have held up the PC version? Like, would they have had to, like, put extra dev time in and then arbitrarily hold the PC version back in order to launch them simultaneously. There is that to think about. Maybe they just thought, let's just get it out there as fast as possible. But I think it's more to do with the, like you say, the marketing of it. Almost like maybe experimenting a bit. I don't know.
Like ground up for the PC. Ooh.
Yeah, ground up for the PC, but it still supports controller on PC too.
It's a freaking tactics game. Like, there's been plenty of them on console. I just don't get it.
Yeah,
and don't come at me with the whole like play what you want where you want. Okay, well, I want to play Gears Tactics on my console. Well, you just gotta wait. Okay, it's be about that life. If you're gonna basically say that, then be about it. And I'm not like Gears Tactics looks cool, but I'm not gonna play it because it's on PC. Would I play it if it was on Xbox? I'd probably give it a go. But I don't know. I just don't care for that whole thing. Same thing with like Microsoft Flight Simulator. Whatever.
So I'm not really feeling Flight Simulator either, mainly because you can't kill anything. But I think I stopped playing Animal Crossing recently. I was all about that for a few days, and then I just sort of stopped playing it. And I was like, man, there's nothing to kill. I think that's my issue here. There's nothing to kill. So I don't know. It's a shallow baby, but
we have a question. I figured we get to this here. Maybe we'll talk about it later. But Julian A. Molina says, so what's getting revealed on Monday by IGN? I'm getting a lot of comments about this. I mentioned this in my video yesterday. So, Jez, what do you think is going on with IGN on Monday? Are they really revealing 3 games on Monday, Jez? Is this something all Xbox fans should look forward to? Are we getting new news?
It was a perfect storm of rumors, basically, because you had that editor from IGN saying that she had an exclusive thing for Monday, and under embargo or whatever. I can't remember the exact quote, but in any case, it was taken as that Microsoft was revealing something with IGN on Monday, and then she kind of walked it back to say it was more of an editorial or something. I can't again, I'm not sure exactly what she said, but she walked it back a bit, but it was too late. Everyone was already like DMing me saying stuff like, oh my god, what's been announced on Monday? And then Shinobi teased some things on Reset Era, which people conflated with that IGN tease to suggest that we were getting 3 game reveals on Monday. And I've also had people mixing it up with the Konami rumors at Microsoft bought Konami, and people have been DMing me things like Microsoft's going to announce a new Metal Gear Solid, a Silent Hill, Castlevania on Monday. But no, I don't think there's going to be any game reveals on Monday.
No,
I have no idea what IGN's teasing, but I'm 98% sure it's not game reveals. I think it might be some kind of commentary or editorial or something in that vein, but just temper your expectations is what I'd say.
I would say don't overhype it. You're going to be disappointed. It's probably something about Gears Tactics, something along those lines. Don't wake up thinking, "Oh man, here we go, baby, Fable's about to get revealed." Yeah, you're gonna be hurt by that. You're definitely gonna be hurt. And we got a super chat from Spider-Man. He says, "The next time Jez can't do the show, can you have Zalker87 sub in? Love the show, and DualSense's controller looks like a toddler's toy." Well, I would have Zalker on the show. He just has to play some games. I like having Jez on the show because Jez plays a lot of stuff. Shout out to Zalker.
It's so mean to Zalker.
I am a little mean. I've talked with Colt. Me and Colt will probably do like a random podcast at some point, and maybe Dealer will join too. But yeah, Zalker just needs to step. I could have him on here because if I said, "Hey, what you been playing?" he'd be like, Shout out to Zalker. Hope you're doing.
We should start having guests on the show, man. We should probably.
Well, then it's not the Xbox 2 then.
Well, it's the Xbox 2 with guest.
Xbox 2 with. I guess we could do that 3-person thing.
Do that.
Yeah.
Every now and then, wouldn't it?
So people have been asking, what's the game on screen? So this is the other game I played this week, The Complex. So it's from Wales Interactive, and if you guys know Wales, they do kind of FMVs. So it's an FMV game where you kind of choose at certain points, like, do you want to save this person or do you want to save this person? and it's kind of a mystery thriller. There's
You like those kind of games?
well, they're
Like,
relaxing. I mean, a playthrough of this game only took an hour and a half, and it's got a whole bunch of different like endings that you can go through, obviously because of the different choices you can make. And you know, like I thought it was good. Like I enjoyed sitting there watching it, making the choices. My ending that I got was not one I wanted. Like I made a wrong choice somewhere. But it's really cool, and obviously when I play something I want to show it off. So it's a pretty cool experience. I'm not really sure how much it costs. I'm gonna play through it again to get the ending I want, and I know you like after you play through, you can like fast forward scenes so you can get to like the branching point, because if you've already seen that the dialogue and what was going on there, you can make a different choice. The story is basically about like nanomachines, kind of like a virus thing. Because I've seen some people saying here, like, what's the game on here with all the is this the real life situation going on right now? But it's a pretty cool game. It's not a Game Pass game, unfortunately. Maybe it will be at one point, but yes, I mean that's what I played this week. I definitely recommend Resident Evil 3. It's a high octane action roller coaster. I'd probably give it an 8.5. Not as good as Resident Evil 2, which I gave a 9. And the complex, if you're into that stuff, I think it's worth, just kind of a chill experience, just sitting there watching it. Someone says Rand the walking simulator at Thor. It's not a walking simulator. You just watch. You just watch. It's fine. Anything else you want to add, Jez?
I don't know. I've just been playing random bits and pieces. Surviving the Aftermath got an update, and there's combat in it now. So I've been playing that, and it's really cool. But the game's so buggy and still unoptimized, I still don't recommend it. But if you're into like City Skylines and Surviving Mars and those sort of colony builder games, Surviving the Aftermath is one to watch. It's basically City Skylines in the apocalypse, which is like my ideal sort of game. So keep an eye on that if you're interested. It's pretty fun. That's pretty much all I've been playing recently.
Oh, by the way, Resident Evil 3 got its patch. Now it runs at 60 frames.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they patched it today.
I'll tell you what else I've been playing, speaking of Resident Evil. I tried that Resident Evil Resistance thing.
Oh my god, so did I.
Ooh. It's not good.
Now you know why they packaged it in with Resident Evil 3, because nobody was going to buy that. I played 2 games, and I'm just like, I uninstalled it. I'm like, nope. I can't imagine there are a lot of people. The funny thing is, my buddy Magic almost has the complete 1,000 in that game. He loved playing as the mastermind.
I couldn't even find a game, man. Like, for ages. It was like, I was queued for like 6 minutes. There's like no one playing it. So, at least in my region, or time I was trying. But when I did get a game, it was just so shallow and boring and lame. I just kind of feel like I thought we were past this era of tacked on bullshit multiplayers.
No, we're not.
I really did.
I mean, I thought so too. This definitely seems like a multiplayer out of last gen. Like someone had a good idea. They wanted a carbon copy. Like, how many like tacked on multiplayer modes do you remember from last generation? There's countless of them, right? And
I couldn't. I was thinking like, oh god, this is like Dead Space. They're tacking on multiplayer because they want to get some microtransaction juice. Like Dead Space 2 had a random multiplayer, which wasn't awful, but it also was like, I'll play one game and then never play it again, sort of thing. Oh man, I honestly thought we were past this. Well, I might write about that next week. Actually, I thought we were past tacked on multiplayer games, but apparently not.
Apparently not. Jay Slayer wants to know if Resident Evil 3 is still at 4K. No, so to get the game running at 60 frames, they had to basically match the resolution that the Pro runs at. So it runs at 1620p, which is a weird resolution. But the game pretty much is a solid 60 frames in gameplay and in the cutscenes. Like, it's hard to really tell that the resolution's been dropped. You can kind of notice it if you get up close, but obviously frame rate's way more important. And even when I played through it my first time, I could see the performance dips. It didn't really affect me too much, But when I restarted it today to, do my other playthrough, it's like, yeah, this game, like the difference is, you can feel it with the frame rate. Stefan Olsen says, hey, Rand, will you buy a new OLED TV so you can experience 4K 120 hertz when Xbox Series X arrives? This is something I've been debating. What about you, Jez, right?
That's weird. I was literally talking to my girlfriend about this today. I was like, I've got to buy another new TV this summer. Because I only bought this Q60R QLED last summer. So I was like, I've got to buy a new TV this summer. So I probably am going to buy one. But I've been debating as well, like, do I buy a gaming PC finally? Do I because the folding Surface devices are coming this year. So I was thinking what I could do is have a really powerful desktop, have a folding Surface as my portable computer. You know what I mean? Because right now I'm using a Razer Blade, which is, it's an RTX 2060 mobile. It's no slouch, but it's not super great either. I have to compromise resolution and put an artificial cap on frames and stuff like that to get it to run cool. And also it gets so noisy when it's warm. And also summer's coming up and it's going to run even warmer. So, and also I was looking at buying a Razer Core. Have you seen those?
No, what's Razer Core?
So it's like a Thunderbolt external GPU housing, and basically you buy a separate DGPU, like a RTX 2060 or 70 or 80, and you can put the full size GPU in there and connect it to your Razer Blade via Thunderbolt. So you can just use your Razer Blade as the CPU and the motherboard and the rest of it. And then it'll use the Thunderbolt connection to run the GPU externally. I was looking at doing that too, because then I could just keep upgrading the external that way. But they're so expensive because it's Razer,
Right, yeah.
And I suppose it's pretty specialist tech, I guess. It's not really there's many people competing in the eGPU space. But I think, all things considered, I'm just going to buy a new TV. I think I will buy a new TV. 120 hertz OLED or something. Just get a really good one for the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, I mean, I bought my OLED in end of 2018, a B8. But that one doesn't have the support like the C9 does, or the newer ones. So yeah, I have been thinking maybe I need to get the C9 so I could have that, because it does support 120 hertz. And it does have VRR. But I'm also thinking to myself, man, I mean, that's also really expensive purchase. And how many games are actually going to run at 120 frames on Series X or the PlayStation 5, really?
See, I'm thinking that multiplayer games might compromise some graphics to get to 120 frames. Because, that's how, competitive games on PC run, right? So I'm thinking that you might see your Call of Duties and stuff like that maybe hit 120 and sacrifice resolution.
I don't think they'll sacrifice resolution. I think they'll hit 60 and they'll try to make the game look as pretty as possible. I don't think most devs are going to try to hit 120 in anything. The only ones that might hit 120 are maybe some of the older gen games, or potentially smaller indie stuff Ori and the Will of the Wisps. They've already talked about. Thomas Mahler talked about, hey, would you guys like this mode? I honestly think most devs will shoot for 60, and they'll just try to make it as pretty as possible. And then even still, some devs might just shoot for 30 and then use every trick in the book, all the effects they could use to make it look as good as possible. So, I mean, 60 frame standard is the dream that I want to achieve, at least. Anything more than that is just icing on the cake. So if they get up to 120 frames, then great. But then again, you think about next gen, then yeah, probably 120 frames will be doable. So you want to future-proof the TV. But the thing is, it's maybe I should just wait until prices actually come down a little bit on those TVs. So we'll see. But I have given that some thought, and I will never not buy in an LG OLED. So, the next one I do buy will be either a C9 or 65-inch, because I have a 55-inch B8 right now, and I'm kind of oh, man, I want a 65-inch one. But, man, they really jack up the prices for that extra 10 inches, though. You know what I mean?
10 inches.
10 inches. Yeah, we got a shout out to Sumith for the super chat. He says, hello from India. Wow, India.
Oh, wow. Hello there.
Hello. He says, still waiting for xCloud to be available here. Is xCloud going to be available at some point in India, right, Jazz?
It'll be available everywhere at some point. Every core market for Microsoft, the goal is to roll it out to everyone. And like India is a major market for Microsoft and just the world. It's just a huge market. So I do expect it to roll out to India eventually. I don't know when, but I suppose they're prioritizing like where their most players are right now. First America, then Western Europe, and I guess like everywhere else will roll out after then.
Zalker's in the chat. Zalker, you missed it. I said I would have you on the show, but I don't want to have a games played segment where you just go the whole time, because Zalker don't play no games. It's kind of like Xbox. Xbox has no games, you know.
Ah, man.
Yeah. Shout out to Gunstar for the super chat. Says, what are the chances Xbox Series X games coming on a SSD cartridge? How much for a 100 gigabyte cart? Like,
Zero.
so you think so? There's zero chance that you like buy the game and it comes on
Zero. Yep,
comes
zero.
on
It's
a
too
card,
expensive.
yeah.
Too expensive. There's no way that'll happen.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. How expensive do you think if you wanted to buy the 1 terabyte external extra drive, how much do you think those are going to cost?
Oh, that's what I call a teeth dryer, you know. You know, because regular USB SSDs are still pretty expensive. And then, like, if what I've heard is true and that this technology is based on the CF Express standard, CF Express is really, really expensive. But Microsoft has a lot of leverage with companies like Seagate, and also they can do like these bulk orders, and they can also say, well, if you get the price down, we'll give you exclusivity to sell these for a year and stuff like that. So there's a lot of tricks they can do to try and lower the price a bit. But I would be shocked if they were less than like 200 for a terabyte, personally.
I think you're at least looking at 150 at minimum, right?
Yeah, I think like 200, 150 for a terabyte, and maybe like they'll do smaller ones for less, like 150 to 100 for like half a terabyte. I think they're going to be pretty pricey, personally.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got. Another super chat here. I got to read off. He said it's from Tony Stark RDX. Which
Tony Stark?
Yeah,
Isn't
Tony.
that Iron Man?
That's Iron Man. Marvel RDX, I think, stands for the Real Deal Xbox Podcast with Dealer Gaming and Cold Eastwood and Zocker and D-Batch and Jay Fonzarelli. He goes, good evening from Switzerland. Sorry, a bit late. Well, we are happy that you're here, man. Seems like we have a lot of people from all across the globe, Jez, watching the show.
Awesome Xbox fans all over the place.
That's right. And
I'm starting to feel the whiskey now, so I need to pace myself a bit. I'm drinking Maker's Mark right now. Kentucky Straight Bourbon from your country, Rand. That is Kentucky.
My country.
USA.
Shout out to Sin Vendetta. He says it'll be $149.99. Mark my words. Well, your words have been marked. Yeah, so you know what? Let's get into the topics. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe button. Mine and Jez's like Xbox gamertag and Twitter handles are on the screen. You can follow us all there. Jez posts way more than I do. Sometimes I just don't know what to tweet, Jez. I'm not that type of person, you know?
I tell you, one thing I want to see more of on Twitter is people tweeting their cool game clips. It's not enough people tweet game clips from their Xbox.
Yeah.
Every now and then I see like a really cool headshot or something, but not enough people do it.
And Zim says they want to hear you talk about Final Fantasy VII. I haven't played it enough to really form an opinion other than like my childhood dream is basically reimagined. Like obviously next week I'll have probably either finished the game or be really far along where I could give you my thoughts. But like for now, it's just I'm not very far in it, so I can't really do that. I can't really give my thoughts. And shout out to the one and only Best Bot Kid Smooth. He goes, I'd love to be a guest on Xbox 2. And Jez, Rand, one of you please leak something today. He wants the leaks. Kid doesn't want to wait. He wants the info today. I guess we should do Xbox 2, just call it Xbox 2 Plus, and just get like
Xbox 2 Plus. Yeah, we
another
could do that.
person.
Rand, I just want to tell you about this. Did you see earlier that Kotaku put out an article saying that Final Fantasy VII Remake's easy mode was too easy?
I did, and I do gotta. We're gonna talk about that. I do have a question here I have to answer. Okay. Emperor Zergi says, Rand, can you talk about when you're going to start playing Animal Crossing? Never. I'm never going to play Animal... And that reminds me of the review that you showed me yesterday from iTunes about our podcast.
Oh, yeah. Someone reviewed our podcast on iTunes, which you all should all do, by the way. And they weren't very fond of Rand.
No, he thought Jez was very informative and he gave great opinions, but that I had I wasn't willing to bend from my preconceived notions, and I was too hard to listen to. And I told my buddy Gopher that.
I agree.
I read it to Gopher, and he's like, you know what? I'm like, what? He's like, I bet you any money he's a Pokemon fan, and I'm like, probably, because the only preconceived stuff I have is pretty much against Nintendo, so.
You are overly mean to Nintendo.
I am a little bit overly mean to Nintendo. Shout out to Double Barrel Gaming, which is Mr. Boomstick. He's got a great channel that he does 3 live shows, sometimes 5, during this, these extraordinary times we're living in. He says, hey guys, I want in on guesting on Xbox 2. Seems like everybody wants in on guesting on Xbox 2, Jez. But what have we started here?
We should explore this.
I guess. We'll think about it. So back to Kotaku.
I just want to follow it up, right? So Kotaku put out an article saying that Final Fantasy VII Remake's easy mode is way too easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a satire site called thehardtimes.net. I don't know if you've seen
I just saw that tweet. I just saw it.
So Hard Drive Magazine just put out an article. Final Fantasy VII Remake's easy mode is too easy, and its hard mode is way too hard. Guest column by Goldilocks. So funny. And, I thought that was an interesting take. Easy mode being too easy.
Yeah, man, we got a guy. Victor says, "Hey, bro, congrats for the podcast. A big hug from Chile." And I think I've seen someone said they're from Scotland. Yeah, and shout out to Gunstar. He says, "Who can't love Rand?" Yeah, everybody love me. No, people hate me. So there are definitely some people that don't like me. No. There are definitely people that do not care about any of the stuff I say. But Kotaku... You are a bit mean to Pokemon, though. I am a bit mean to Nintendo fans and Pokemon. Kotaku wrote an article about Final Fantasy VII saying that... What was it, Jez? It was basically saying that Final Fantasy VII's easy mode is too easy, right?
Yeah.
But this is the same publication that wrote an article about Sekiro last year when everybody was bitching about it in Sekiro not having easy mode. And they said, an easy mode has never ruined a game.
I mean, the guy who wrote the article did write a fair amount about it and trying to back up his opinion. But sometimes I feel like some ad-based news blogs come up with a headline first that they know will get clicks and then try and write the article around the headline. And I kind of feel like that's the kind of non-issue that some of these blogs will put out. But I don't know. Personally, I haven't tried the easy mode because I thought the normal mode was too easy.
Really? Because my buddy Gopher thought the normal mode was actually pretty difficult.
Well... man, I suppose it depends. Like initially, because I played the demo quite a lot, right? Because I really enjoyed it, and I got a really good feel for the combat from that. So when I come to play the full game, I'm on normal mode, and I always try to review games on normal mode because I figure that's where most people will play. I died like 3 times in the whole game. And the only times I died was like if I was being overly confident and going into a battle with like half health or less. I thought it was just like really way too easy. Like you get to a point, especially in the middle, where maybe it's more to do with doing all the side quests. I was doing literally every quest because I was reviewing it. So I sort of got to a point where I just sort of kind of couldn't die, and I had 2 characters with cure. So I just kept healing myself to full health. I had like hundreds of ethers, so I couldn't run out of mana. Like if you just keep healing yourself, you basically cannot die. It's like the last boss too, one-shotted it, like didn't die, no problems. So but like when you complete it, it does unlock a hard mode as well. And you could go back to any chapter and play in hard mode if you want to like hunt down achievements or trophies or whatever. But I just sort of felt like, oh, I'm done with this now. Played for 40 hours. I don't really need to go and do the hard mode stuff.
Right.
But I dread to think how easy the easy mode is. Like basically the characters attack and defend automatically on the easy mode is what I understand. And that basically you only have to select your magic skills and stuff. I think.
Well, that would make it a lot easier. But I don't really understand what the big deal is with easy or normal or hard. I know there's that whole like stuff surrounds the From Software games because a lot of the purists believe that if From had to make an easy mode, it would somehow degrade the game or somehow rip their accomplishments for beating Dark Souls and Sekiro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an interesting discussion to have. I personally think it should be up to developers how easy or hard you want your game to be. And if they don't feel I don't know, because then you get the whole accessibility thing for people who, are disabled, who maybe want to play your game but can't. I mean, I understand all that. So, I mean, I don't think
That's the thing though. Like, there are disabled people who've completed Dark Souls like with severe disabilities, and if you took that away from them, that takes away their achievements too. So it's kind of like everyone approaches difficulty with a different mindset, and there are some games out there that let you completely tailor the difficulty. Like for example, a lot of the games I play, like the strategy games and stuff, or the simulator games, 4X strategy especially, like Stellaris, they'll let you tailor every aspect of difficulty, like how aggressive the AI is and stuff like that, because you basically set your own game and set your own pace of like what kind of game you want to have. Do you want to have more of a colony building game? Do you want to have more of a survival game? That kind of thing. But again, I'm with you. I think developers are artists, and when you start dictating to them how their game should be, you're dictating art. That's how I see it. So crap! I just knocked my whiskey over.
Man, the whiskey is getting into. Now you're dropping stuff.
Yeah. I just think artists should be allowed to create art however they see fit. If someone wants their game to be hard, fine. Like I think I don't play Sekiro and Dark Souls because I'm just kind of like, man, I can't deal with this, But I don't want an easy mode because I don't care about missing out. However, I will play Monster Hunter and I will kill like arch-tempered bosses in Monster Hunter because I can suffer through the difficulty with my friends. And if we're all struggling and we're all learning the boss, it's more entertaining to me than trying to do it by myself,
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
I don't know.
I just find the two articles kind of interesting when you look at them from side by side. I know different authors and all that, but if you're saying an easy mode never ruined a game, but then you're complaining that easy mode in Final Fantasy is too easy, then just don't play on easy mode. Like play on the normal mode. And if you beat the game, you can play it on hard. Like I don't understand what's so difficult about that, but yeah, it's just another example of Kotaku. Like the only thing I really like from Kotaku, and I know a lot of people don't like him, a lot of people are blocked by him on Twitter, is I like Jason Schreier's reporting. Like I like reading like the behind the scenes stuff that goes on at Naughty Dog or Gearbox or when he reports on that sort of stuff. I appreciate that sort of level of journalism, of investigative journalism. But other than that, like I think Kotaku's pretty much a useless website. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. But man, we got a whole bunch of big topics to get to. So if you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like button, share this out on Twitter, all that good stuff. Subscribe if you're new here. Man, people are saying where they're from. I see someone's from Australia and someone's from Italy. There's fans all around the world for Xbox 2, Jazz. That kind of that kind of warms my heart,
It does warm my heart too.
Yeah.
As well as this whiskey.
So let's talk about the big news of the week. The PS5 DualSense controller that kind of dominated social media and eclipsed the Microsoft's work from home inside Xbox episode, which we'll talk about.
My most engaged tweet ever is about the DualSense controller now. It just shows like the brand power of Sony is just massive.
Yeah, Sony's got that's the one thing you can do. Like Sony is a very, very huge, very powerful gaming brand, and Microsoft has a lot to try to combat that. And I think they're doing their best. They're doing what they should be doing by being front and center about Series X and all that stuff. And people are incredibly thirsty, not only about PlayStation stuff, but about next gen in general. I think a lot of people are kind of tired of this generation. They want to move on to the next one. And because Sony's kind of been withholding info, a logo shows up at CES and people go crazy and Instagram likes records are broken. And then here's the new controller. And because the new controller is different, that got people, that kind of got the you have the people who like it and the people who don't. Like if it would have been a DS5 that looked just the same, people would have been like, kind of like an evolution of the Xbox Series X controller, where it's not really that much different than the Xbox One controller. All they really added is a share button. So when you see the new controller, you're like, okay, that makes sense. The Xbox One controller is already great. How do you don't need to do anything different? But Sony's like, basically, we're going to kind of change things up a little bit. And I like the new design. What about you?
I love it. I think it looks futuristic. I said this on Twitter. Like the first thing I thought was that old Bjork video with the sexy robots. I don't know if you've seen that video. I can't remember what the song's called, but I just remember the sexy robots, But I thought, yeah, that is a really nice controller. And you know what it speaks to? It speaks to the researching ergonomics. That's what it speaks to. Like, there's a reason the Xbox controller looks the way it does. It's because Microsoft's done the research into ergonomic design, and they were actually the first company that started doing that. And that comes off the back of their heritage, making really popular mice and keyboards and stuff like that. So there's a reason the Nintendo Pro controller looks like an Xbox controller, and there's a reason the Xbox controller looks the way it does, and there's a reason the new Sony controller looks similar to an Xbox controller. It's because that's just ergonomic research at play. So it's not a case about copying anyone. It's just a case of that's what most people prefer when you do the user research. And one of the biggest discussion points was the offset thumbsticks. And so like Ryan McCaffrey and Dustin Legary from IGN, they put out like opposing polls and Ryan was like, my audience skews towards Xbox, and Dustin Legary was like, my audience skews towards PlayStation. And they put out two separate polls saying, do you prefer offset thumbsticks or inline thumbsticks like the DualShock? And offset won across both polls.
Well, Greg Miller also tweeted that, and his audience is very much only PlayStation, and offset won that poll as well. I think Sony guys just need to realize that offset is the best configuration for thumbsticks. I mean, it's just the
logic,
truth.
Though. What's the logic? Because personally, I don't mind either. Like I hate about the Sony thumbsticks is that they suck. I don't mind the fact that they're offset.
I don't mean like I can play with any controller. It's not that the only time I ever like think about what I'm doing with the controller is when I'm playing on Nintendo's Pro controller, because the actual buttons are reversed. You know what I mean? Like B and like A and like they're flipped. So on the PlayStation controller, it's like, yeah, triangle, circle, square, X. I know where all those are. And yeah, okay, my thumbs are symmetrical. Not a big deal. I prefer it offset. But when I actually play with the Nintendo Pro controller, I sometimes have to think, okay, what is this button going to do? Because it's flipped on both of the other systems I play on. So that's a little bit more confusing to me. So, yeah, I don't know. Like but here's the thing. Did you expect Sony to change the symmetrical sticks? Because I didn't.
No,
I mean, it's kind of
iconic.
It's too. There's things you can't change about the PlayStation controller: the symmetrical sticks and the triangle, circle, X, square for the face buttons. You can't change any of those. You can change the shape, which they did, and the kind of maybe like the bigger point, discussion point surrounding it was the two-tone color, the white and the black.
that was a point of discussion too. Like people exploded with fan designs of that controller almost instantly. And like I saw the tweet that got the most engagement from me was the classic style gray with the colored triangle, square, circle, X buttons. There's obviously a lot of potential for custom designs there, but I actually like the two-tone. I actually, honestly, I like everything about that controller. I think it's awesome, and it represents like some of the best design work Sony's done. I personally think.
Yeah. What do you think? So personally, I like the color isn't like the big thing for me. Like I can get over the color. I would prefer a all black controller. But looking at some of the designs that people have come up with on Twitter, they can make some really excellent custom controllers. I don't know if you saw the one that Cold Eastwood made. Did you see that one? He made the Fisher Price one. You had to have seen it. Yeah,
I did see it. Yeah, I did see it. Sorry, I thought you meant a serious one.
No, not a serious. But there's some there's a God of War one and a Spider one. They all look really cool. What'd you think about the microphone built into the controller?
I love it, and I'll tell you why. And it's the same reason that I was a fan of Kinect. It's because if developers know that it's there, they'll make stuff for it. Like the Wiimote had like a little speaker in it too, and the 3DS had a microphone in it as well. The developers used it because they knew it would be there. Now, like I wrote articles like years ago saying Microsoft should put a microphone in the Xbox controller for Cortana, and like one of my most popular articles was of a few years ago was you can buy this mini microphone and plug it into 3.5mm jack to turn your Xbox controller into like a smart speaker, you know. And like you could buy like these tiny little microphone dongles and just plug it into 3.5mm jack in the controller and basically get what Sony's done with the microphone there. And there's a huge potential for smart assistants. There's huge potential for like gaming features and stuff like that. I know a lot of people say that like, I don't want to yell at my controller, and that's fine. But like options are supposed to be good, right? And like it just goes to show that Sony think about what more can we do to enable creativity, and that is the mentality that created Kinect. Is like what can we do to make more options for developers. Now Kinect didn't work because it was a camera and a microphone, but I think taking one step at a time and just having a microphone could enable some really cool creative scenarios that frankly Xbox ain't gonna get. And I think it's, and not only that, speaking of innovation, but the dynamic tension adaptive triggers on the PlayStation 5 controller as well, that's way more advanced than what Xbox is doing with its controller. Like the fact that the triggers will, like the example they give is when you pull the trigger, it'll know if you're using a bow, the trigger will be harder to press down. For example, the tension will move dynamically, mechanically based on what weapon you're using. That is super cool. And like, yeah, maybe only first-party developers will use it because it's not going to be on PC and it's not going to be on Xbox. But even still, that's like a cool feature that, you know, I would like to see Xbox do as well.
I will say the controller seems like it's going to be expensive. Definitely seems like a more expensive controller. And the other thing I was wondering about two other things, but they moved the light bar from the top to the sides. So people are wondering what does that mean for PSVR 2 or PSVR in general? Because I believe the PSVR the camera used the light from the bar to, you know, determine where you are.
The camera.
So, and we do know from some leaks and stuff like that there is a PSVR 2 in the works. So, is there some solution that we just haven't heard about? And the other thing...
Wouldn't it be funny if Sony has a camera like Kinect that they're gonna... Well, I know they got the PlayStation Eye, but wouldn't it be funny if they require the camera next gen?
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't do that. Shout out to Gunstar75. He says, but at what cost? I mean, everything has got a price, for sure. And I think this all comes down to whatever the cost of what the system is going to be, because you're selling a system plus the controller, and it's like, is it going to be for $500? Is it going to be $450? Is it going to be $399? And that's the battle.
That's also another point about price is the battery cell.
The battery
because
cell, yeah.
one of the biggest complaints about the PlayStation 4 controller, the DualShock, is the battery life just sucks. Like when I was reviewing Final Fantasy VII Remake, I had to plug the controller in like every few hours, which just ain't something I'm used to. Like having like Eneloop rechargeable AA batteries on an Xbox controller, they've got like a combined milliamp hourage of like 3,000 milliamp hours or whatever, and like I have no idea what the DualShock is, but it ain't nowhere near that. And then if you're talking about the Xbox Elite controller, which has 40-hour battery life and a charge dock, I never ever have to charge this thing. I just drop it in the dock. I mean, I never have to think about charging it. I just drop it in the dock when I'm done at the end of the day, and it charges up, and I never ever have to think about battery life. But the Elite controller costs $180.
It sure does.
Those 3,000 milliamp hour batteries ain't cheap. They are not cheap. So if Sony's going to up the battery life on that thing, it's going to come at a price. And all the motorization in the triggers, motorization for the haptics, which Xbox has now, but Sony has it too, and the motorization for the adaptive triggers that control the tension and stuff like that, that's going to be pretty expensive, I think.
Well, doesn't Xbox have the impulse triggers as well?
Well, the difference here is
nobody uses
the haptics. No. There's a difference, right? So what the Xbox controller has is they have haptic triggers, which give you like a rumbling sensation in the trigger when you're using, if developers use it properly. Only games like Gears of War, some Ubisoft games, and a few other developers actually use those triggers properly, and Tomb Raider and stuff like that. Most of them don't do it because, competing games don't have it. So like, but that's not the same as what Sony's doing. Like Sony now has that too with the haptics, but they also have the adaptive triggers, which make them harder to press if you're using certain weapons. Like if you're using a bow, the trigger will be physically harder to press, is what my understanding is.
Right, yeah. That's kind of my understanding as well. The thing with like the impulse triggers on the Xbox was not a lot of developers use them.
Yeah,
and like
it's basically first party Ubisoft,
and it wasn't even really that much first party. It was like maybe the Forza games and stuff. So, like Forza, if they both have the haptic stuff, hopefully like we get more of that sort of experiences across both. The microphone thing is interesting for PlayStation because I'm of two minds of it. One, I don't really have a mic for my PlayStation 4. And people, when I play, sometimes I get party invites that I really can't join because I don't have a mic to talk to them. So this gives me a cheap option. Like, here's my controller, I can join your party, and I can talk to you through my controller, which is a weird thing to say. But I guess people used to talk to their cameras and their Kinects. Now, as an Xbox... I can
tell you never owned a 3DS. Because you could do that on the 3DS
too. Nintendo, whatever. Now, as a user on Xbox who always use headsets, like the ones that, before I started getting into the gaming headsets, the ones that Microsoft packed into the box, and then now obviously the Astros, it always sucked when you were in a party with somebody who was talking using the Kinect. Because it was horrible. It was if there's other people talking in there, their voice, you could it would be bouncing all over the walls, so it sounded kind of far away, and then people would fight and all this stuff. It was horrible. So on one hand, I'm like, that's cool because I don't got to buy a mic for the PlayStation 5 anymore, so I don't really have to spend any more money. I currently use my Astray 50s. I plug it in the optical out into the optical out into the back of my TV. So I can use it on the PlayStation, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so like, but I don't. If I'm a PlayStation user, I don't want like to join a party with people talking from it because I just think it'll be a low quality microphone.
Have you ever used a high-end Sony headphones?
No, I have not.
Well, Sony, like, so if anyone can get a microphone array right on a controller, it's probably Sony. There's a lot they can do with post-processing to make it not do the things you're talking about. Like, a lot of people said to me, oh, you'll be able to hear like people messing around with the controller. Like, you can sometimes hear me messing around with the controller when I configure my mic incorrectly when we're podcasting. But like, there's things Sony can do post-processing to eliminate noise from the controller, to eliminate noise from the background and stuff like that. I'm not saying it's going to be a great mic. I'm just saying, like, don't expect it to be unusable, is what I'd say. There's a reason to be optimistic about the mic, is what I'm saying.
Okay, that's good. So like when you compare both controllers, Xbox Series X versus the DualSense, which are you surprised they changed it to the DualSense instead of dropping the DualShock branding?
That's weird. Like, I saw a great tweet from DualShockers.com, which is one of the few gaming sites that I actually like, by the way. They said DualShockers.com were like, oh, we've got to change our name to DualSenses now, which I thought was hilarious. But yeah, I did think it's weird that changed the branding. I mean, like, at the end of the day, who cares about the branding of a controller?
True.
But like, what this shows, I suppose, for Sony is that, like, for them, this really is a generational leap, right?
Yeah. Shout out to iDizzy in the super chat. He says, stopping in to give a quick, hey guys, great show. That's it. That's the super chat. Thank you for the support, buddy. Hope you're doing well with your treatments. Hopefully everything goes well for you, buddy. Praying for you. So now when you compare it to the Xbox Series X controller, so Xbox, look, I'm biased. I'll be the first one to tell you. Like, I'm not a neutral gamer. I know there's people out there that claim to be neutral. I'm certainly not. I much prefer Xbox. I just don't talk crap about PlayStation. I will criticize both and praise both, when I feel it's necessary. So I'm obviously like with the Xbox Series X controller, I dig it. I like it's already a great controller. I didn't expect them to kind of go back to the drawing board with it. Obviously, they needed to add a share button, but I did find the response from Sony to be a little bit. They're kind of making fun of Xbox because they're like, we did the industry first share button, but now that's so last gen. Now it's a create button. And there's a part of me that feels that Microsoft on the controller side, at least with the share button, is going to be a generation behind. Because while they're trying to keep up with Sony, like, oh, we need to add the share button, Sony's sitting there thinking about, well, we need to still have the share button, but we need to have it do more. You know what I mean? Microsoft you run the risk of essentially being a generation behind on your controller and the feature set of it.
I think like the Xbox controller is not going to be bad or anything, but it is a fair point to make that Sony's innovating for developer creativity with the controller, whereas Microsoft's innovation for developers more airs on the graphical side, like with DX12 Ultimate and stuff like that. But the thing is, Sony's going to have a lot of those features as well with the ray tracing and developer tools and stuff like that. I think Microsoft, like, it really does feel like Microsoft got burned by Kinect to the point where there's almost this trepidation of jumping into new hardware paradigms now. It's kind of like they ditch Kinect and now they don't even want to try VR. They don't even want to try radical new types of inputs anymore.
Well, they just moved Bill Stillwell to VR. So are they more pushing to maybe get a VR headset working on Xbox sooner rather than later?
This is up in the air, and I really want to listen to Dealer's podcast with Bill Stillwell, and I haven't got around to it yet. Do you know if he said anything about VR on that podcast or not?
I don't know. I haven't listened to the full podcast. I know he talked a little bit about like the console and how they're happy with what they have. They're not worried about the power. Like Dealer had some clips up of it. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but I'm sure they talk about it because like that's his new position. And he was also on the Iron Lords podcast, another great group of guys, another great group of podcasts. With Lord Cognito and Lord Addict and Lord King.
It's almost as if the VR team doesn't really have any PR oversight or something.
So that's the other thing. Like people asking for VR and just. With the release of Half-Life Alyx, which is most likely going to be nominated for Game of the Year. You doubt? You don't think Half-Life Alyx is going to get nominated?
Nominated.
I'm not saying it's going to win. I'm saying 100%. Look, to me, if all the games come out this year, right, that we think are currently supposed to come out, I think there's 4 absolute locks for Game of the Year. At least 4. I think one of them is Half-Life Alyx. I think the other is Last of Us Part 2. I think Cyberpunk 2077, and I think Final Fantasy VII Remake are 100% locks for Game of the Year. The other 2 slots, Halo Infinite, if it's good. Ghost of Tsushima, if it's good. Like there's probably a whole bunch of unannounced games that potentially could get there. Ori, if, like the rest of the games that come out aren't as good. But I think those 4 are shoo-ins. And I wouldn't be surprised if Half-Life Alyx win, Jazz. People talk about that game. They talk about it revolutionizing, gaming in general, right?
Well, this kind of feeds back into the whole Microsoft being afraid to try new hardware paradigms sort of thing.
It does. That's why I brought it up.
They got burned by Windows Phone, got burned by Kinect. And you've got the Surface team trying this whole folding thing. But their budget for VR has been abysmal. You look at the Windows Mixed Reality, the store for Windows Mixed Reality, it's awful, man. There's 3 or 4 games in there. Whereas you can use it with Steam, thank God. But Microsoft has made no effort to get developers onto their own platform for VR. They've made no effort whatsoever. There's no budget, there's no push for it internally. It's almost it's to call it a side project would be generous at this point. However, the fact that Bill Stillwell was tweeting about consumer VR specifically was interesting to me, because up until now, Microsoft's messaging about VR has very much been on the side of business to business. It's very much been on the side of we're going to do VR, but we're going to focus on the military. We're going to focus on enabling not consumer scenarios, employee scenarios, training scenarios where people can train remotely.
Mm-hmm.
You can use HoloLens to train someone how to repair something without them having to physically be there. That's where they're focused on VR up to now. Consumer scenarios would require significant investment, and I did think it was interesting that Bill Stillwell tweeted specifically consumer scenarios, because that obviously would have implications for Xbox, right?
I think
but I do at the same time think it's internal politics. I think there's probably still not a lot of internal interest in getting to a point where Xbox has VR. I think they're still at a point where it's let's wait and see. I think it's still a point where they want to have a wireless headset
solution. Yeah,
I
agree with you.
I think it's still a long way off.
I do. We got a couple questions here in Super Chat. We got one from Eagles Fan 76. He says, "Is the PS5 with these cost features worth it? And maybe coming in at the same price as Series X? I don't see these features being used except for his party." Well, prices. I mean, Phil talked about how price is critical. And that's, the controllers, I like the controller. It seems to be pretty expensive. Who knows what the build cost is for PS5? Now, Business Insider says it's $470. Z Huge says that the build cost for a Series X is basically anywhere between $480 and $520. And I've talked about this before, I'm sure Sony had a price they wanted to hit. Xbox had a price they wanted to hit and build to. Obviously, some things are out of the control, like currently what's going on in this world. I just really, really think the PlayStation 5 is going to be $500, and I think Series X is going to be $500. I think they're both going to be the same. I think Microsoft is going to take the loss to hit that price point. Sony's not going to want to take the loss to get it down to $400, and it's going to be a battle. And it's with the same price. Xbox has the better specs. Of course, there's that whole God. We need to talk about some of this other stuff. So we'll get into it. I got to read some of this other things. Like JD Gamer, he says, "What are the chances that we see screens out of controllers after this next gen, similar to the ones that we used to on the Dreamcast VMUs?" I don't think.
Oh my God, the Dreamcast controller had a screen in it.
Yeah,
forgot about that.
And shout out to Nightwolf. He says, Bill said that he is working mainly on AR, augmented reality. He is intrigued by it, but not willing to say more. I recommend listening to that podcast. It was very informative having Bill on there. So there you go. So
Bill's a cool dude. I'm intrigued to see what he does at the VR section.
God, this week is interesting because every time I get on social media and I people send me tweets from these guys that have been wrong about everything about PlayStation, and now they're talking about basically how the PS5 is so advanced. It's even more advanced than even the high-end PCs. And how, there was that interview with the Crytek developer. I think you guys wrote about it on Windows Central, where he talked about like, oh, well, the series, the PS5 is a better machine, blah, 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 blah. And then it was like basically retracted all of his statements and the interview disappeared. And there's rumors that guy got fired. Like, is it just me, or is like the FUD surrounding these consoles and what they can or can't do just is starting to reach ridiculous levels? I mean, there was at one point talking about how audio would eat up like 20% of the Xbox's GPU power. Just like
What?
And I know, like, but you get like every single day I log in here and then people are just making these wild claims. Like I've never.
People are like super sensitive to it. Like I tweeted out a while ago that I'd heard concerns. Some developers are concerned about how Sony's going to handle cooling, and I tweeted that out, and people were really upset about it. But I didn't realize how much fear mongering actually there is out there.
Oh, there's tons. There's definitely tons. And
I get why people were upset about that, but like, yeah, it is what it is.
The thing is, it's like I don't know why anybody listens to people that were basically been wrong and proven to be wrong for I don't know how long now.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
I trust my sources, and they've proven themselves to be consistently correct. Like we had the teraflops right, we had the clock speed right, we even had the read speed of the Xbox's SSD correct. So like when I say I trust my sources, it's because they've proven themselves to be accurate.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these, to be fair, a lot of these people don't do it as their day job. So like maybe they want like forum clout, or they just want to feel like they're part of the discussion or whatever. I don't know. But like this is literally my day job. Like I literally spend all day checking sources, independently verifying and doing this sort of stuff. So it's not like I have any desire to put out false information. But that's the problem. When people do put out false information, it makes all information questionable.
Yeah, we live in the era of fake news. Everything is like we basically just need the games to come out. Like once the games come out, that'll tell the whole story. You'll have Digital Foundry and everybody basically analyzing it. All the claims of all these people will be put to the test. Who was right and who was wrong. And I would imagine the people who have been wrong will continue to be wrong. Yet people will still give those same people attention because they talk positively about the brand they like. That's essentially it.
Facts.
That's
Don't
essentially
care about
it.
Feelings.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
JD Gamer says, if you could pick one thing from the PS5 controller to put in the Xbox controller, what would it be? The adaptive triggers, mic, or internal battery?
Well, for me, before they killed Cortana, I would have said the mic. Because I think the mic in the controller might have saved Cortana's, possibility to be an actual thing. A little bit, maybe. But as we all know, Cortana is now pretty much dead.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have said the mic, but now I'm kind of hyped for those adaptive tension control triggers, if I'm even understanding that correctly. There seems to be some confusion about exactly what that means and what haptics means for the DualSense. Like, is it just rumble motors, or is it actually like full-blown tension control on the triggers? If it is that tension control on the triggers, where like if you're playing Skyrim, you've got a bow equipped, and like you can actually like feel the string when you pull down the trigger. That is a really cool user scenario to think about.
So here's the thing.
So I really like that.
I wouldn't want the mic because I wouldn't want to be in a party with people who use the mic to talk. Right?
Good point.
But then again, I also think like most of the time I talk to my friends, and they all have headsets, so maybe that wouldn't be that big of a deal. The adaptive triggers probably is the one I would choose. Internal battery, I had the Antelopes, rechargeable batteries. As soon as one would die, swap them in with the new one and just keep on playing. But ever since I have the Elite Series 2, I gotta say that battery, but the charge on that battery lasts forever.
It's an expensive battery. I wouldn't be surprised if the battery is just a significant part of its price point.
Well, yeah, so that battery's great. It lasts like 40 plus hours. My PlayStation 4 DualShock controller does not hold a charge for very long. Like if I'm doing like an epic gamer session, which I probably will with Final Fantasy VII, where I'm playing for like 8 hours, I probably deplete the whole charge and then have to charge it again. it just does not hold the charge for long. And eventually, the battery runs out and you just have to buy another controller. So I guess I would rather have the adaptive triggers if I was going to pick. And shout out to Showman. He says Bill Stillwell low-key said PS5 sucked. Okay. So the thing that the PS5 DualSense preempted was Inside Xbox. Because Microsoft was doing a Inside Xbox episode from home. What did you think of it, Jez?
I actually didn't watch it. It was on too late for me. My team watched it, and they covered it for me. Shout out to Samuel and Asher. But I did catch some clips of it, and I saw Phil's message about Game Pass in Japan, which I thought was really cute. Phil talking Japanese. That was really, really cool. But as I say, I didn't really watch the full thing. But they were upfront about what it was. They were upfront about it. They were like, "We're going to cover this. We're going to cover that. We're going to cover this." And I think if anyone was like overexcited for what that show is going to be about, it's pretty much their own fault, because they were transparent about what they were covering. There was no surprise.
I expect nothing from Inside Xbox. I thought the show was fine for what it was, because it was basically compact. It was concise. It was 40 minutes long. The Game Pass stuff, Journey to the Savage Planet, was just added to Game Pass. It's a pretty cool game. I recommend it if you're a Game Pass member. It's pretty cool to check out. That game just came out in January. And I'm trying to think of the other games that came to Game Pass out of that announcement, but nothing else really kind of sticks to mind or comes to mind.
Journey was the big one.
Journey was the big one. I like the intimate setting. I thought it was cool for them to do it for the fans, to keep the community engaged during the time that we live in. I thought that was cool. It was nice to see like Phil, in his house, like he did with IGN and the team do that stuff. It was just a small thing. Like, I don't expect anything from it. I don't even expect this to be the test run for their future events, their future, digital event that is supposed to replace E3. Like, I do
think they're learning from. I do think that they're learning and adapting, and they're watching things like Nintendo Direct, and they're sort of trying to get a better handle on pacing and stuff. Because that's one thing people have complained a lot about, and I think they can just analyze how engaged people are in any given show. So I think they'll get better at that stuff over time. Yeah, I mean,
so like it was fine, but like nobody cared about it once Sony dropped that. And so the other question I have, and people have asked me that, and I can look at it both ways. Did Sony deliberately drop the info about the PS5 DualSense on this day because Inside Xbox was coming later on, and they wanted to take any sort of, I don't know, goodwill, momentum away from Xbox? Do you think Sony is that petty? Because people when I watch like Weapon Wheel podcast or Press Start, and BG talks about how petty Sony can be as a company. So do you think that was something that's possible?
I think they did it on purpose, but the thing is, Microsoft's done that sort of thing too on purpose before.
You think they did it on purpose? I mean, they only announced the Inside Xbox the day before, right? So there was a 1-day lead time. So you think Sony saw that they were doing it the day before? They went and they wrote this up and set it out the next. Like, why would Sony care about the Inside? I mean, I know how it looks because they have kind of done stuff like that to Xbox before. But I mean, to me, it's like, wouldn't you want to do that when Microsoft's about to do like next gen stuff, and not some Inside Xbox about Grounded and Gears Tactics? I don't know. Does Sony
really?
Does Sony really care that much?
It wouldn't have taken them long to put that blowout together.
No, probably not.
Huge, epic production values video that went with it. It was like, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, do they even really need to care about Inside Xbox? Probably not. But both companies do that sort of thing. Like, I'm sure Microsoft's usurped a planned Sony announcement before.
Well, Sam Tolbert, you just mentioned him. He writes for Windows Central. He says,
My
"Nah, it
minion.
was Tuesday. Every drop of PS5 info has been in a Tuesday, even the Wired articles.
Oh, well,
So
there you
maybe
go.
it was always just planned, and it just coincidentally happened the same day.
Mm.
I don't know. Either way, I mean, it seems like they're getting better with Inside Xbox. The problem is, I think people's expectations for what Inside Xbox is don't meet the reality of what Inside Xbox delivers. I don't really think there's anything exciting that Xbox is doing right now that's not like next gen related. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just not really, I just don't really feel the excitement surrounding Grounded or Gears Tactics. And I think most people feel that way. I'm not saying everybody feels that way. So, like, when you do an Inside Xbox about that small stuff, and you don't really break new news or show new things, it's kind of like, was that really worth it? But and we're going to be talking about this in a second about the whole games teasing stuff. When you start getting into, like, the next gen, the studios and the games they're working on and all that stuff and hardware and all that, like, then Inside Xbox can become a little bit more unpredictable, and you might be able to expect newer things from it, but essentially, like, I never expect anything from these shows. So I'm never disappointed by it because I don't expect anything. So, I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts on Inside Xbox.
Aye.
So, let's talk about Xbox Series X game reveal tease. We kind of talked a little bit about it before, about Shinobi 602 on Reset Era. He put out
Poor Shinobi.
Poor Shinobi. He, somebody was disappointed about the graphic, some of the recent games from Xbox Game Studios, namely Bleeding Edge and Grounded, about how their art style, their graphical styling is a little bit more on the cartoony side. And he said that
People love Borderlands, though.
People do love Borderlands, but Borderlands is also a $150 production, AAA production. I don't think
$150.
$150 million production.
That's a lot.
I don't think Grounded and Bleeding Edge come anywhere close to that, but
they were also both in development before.
I know that's the truth. But when you say that, people say you're damage controlling, Jez.
Well, I don't know. Is it damage controlling?
I mean, it's the truth. Is it damage controlling? I don't think the truth is damage controlling. It's just the truth.
Again, you can talk about Rare and Sea of Thieves, but Rare's always made their games look like that.
I know. Some people, I don't know. Some people, like, I'm not gonna get into it, but what was I talking about? Basically, the T. So Shinobi came. The guy said, "I wish Microsoft would do more stuff on the level of Gears of War." Shinobi said, "You won't be disappointed," and then he elaborated to basically say that you won't have much longer to wait, and that there are gorgeous fantasy worlds, reboots plural, and big sci-fi all on their way. And I did a video yesterday giving my thoughts on it. What do you think, Jez?
Well, shout out to Shinobi, by the way. He's a really nice guy, and pretty much everyone in the industry loves him, from what I can tell. He teased on Reset Era, and the vaguest possible way, and it kind of blew up. I had DMs, people asking me if Microsoft were going to announce 3 games on Monday. I had DMs from people asking me if Microsoft was going to announce a new Silent Hill, a new Metal Gear Solid, a new Castlevania on Monday because of those rumors about Microsoft buying Konami's IP or whatever.
Which, by the way, there are new rumors that there is a new Silent Hill on PS5. Shout out to Sir Galahad in the super chat. He says, thoughts on the rumor of exclusive Silent Hill on PS5. If there's a new Silent Hill game, I would not be surprised if it's exclusive. But go ahead, Jez. Sorry for that.
But yeah, in any case, we were just talking about, like, those teasers. I think, like, Shinobi's proven himself time and time again to be well connected. So I don't think he'd overhype if there was nothing there. But when we see that materialize is anyone's guess. We've been kind of hearing similar stuff for a while, and we pretty much know that Microsoft's working on a new Fable.
Yes.
It's almost a given at this point. God knows what, we've got an idea about what some of the other studios are working on, but a lot of these studios they're unproven in the AAA arena. So the question is, will these games be good enough to change the narrative? Really,
It's a start. I mean, the games have to be good, obviously.
Yeah.
Personally, so you take what he said about how we don't have to wait soon, right? Now, before this whole current situation we're living in, me and you had both heard from multiple people that there was supposed to be an event in April, right?
yeah,
An Xbox event where they would show hardware and games. And then there was obviously E3. But of course, things changed. The world, changed, and E3 was canceled. And essentially, you can't really invite people to a press event because you're practicing social distancing. And, Microsoft recently said that all their events will be digital until July 2021. Did you reach out to Microsoft about that, right?
I haven't yet, but I plan to do so.
So, I think when Shinobi says we don't have to wait that long, I think he's implying that it's going to be. I think there's the April event essentially got shifted to May, and then there's probably going to be another event sometime in June. So, I don't think we have to wait all the way to June to get our first look at some of these games. I think we'll see something sometime next month. I think they shifted the April event to May. Now, as for the teases themselves, Gorgeous Fantasy Worlds, I mean, come on, that's Fable. I mean, let's be honest here, Jez. We both know Fable is, pretty, essentially about as confirmed as confirmed can be.
Yes.
I mean, nothing's ever confirmed until it's announced.
Hang on. I'm just getting more whiskey.
He's getting more whiskey. You know what that means? Leaks becoming because Jez gets a little he gets a little loose when he gets some whiskey in him.
Everything. I'm celebrating. It's my day off or something. But yeah, I mean, the fantasy world probably Fable, but you've also got In Exile working on an RPG. You've also got Obsidian, who have the Pillars of Eternity franchise, who you can easily see making the transition to a AAA 3D sort of game, not so isometric. It's kind of like Skyrim, which is also something they're rumored to be working on, something in the vein of Skyrim. I don't know, but
I mean,
all three developers could be working on something fantasy-esque.
I mean, Fable is basically at this point one of the worst kept secrets. And I know there's some concern that, it's going to be more like Sea of Thieves. Cartoony Fable. I think they're going to go more for the realistic approach. I remember, when the rumors first started that Playground was essentially making an RPG, the rumors were that it was kind of inspired by Witcher and Horizon Zero Dawn. So I think it's going to be... It's basically just going to be Fable in name, is what I think. It's going to be like, here's Albion, it's Fable in name, it's not Fable 4, and it's essentially just something brand new that they're just tying to the franchise, and it's going to be kind of a more realistic take on it.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel
fine.
about the possibility that you won't be able to fart in the game?
Good. I hope there isn't a button to fart or kick chickens. I hope it's its own thing. I hope
leave the kicking chickens in, surely.
I mean, sure, maybe you could keep chickens in, but I'd rather just see Playground make the RPG that they want, and that not basically be beholden to old gameplay mechanics. That's some of the problems with Gears right now. Gears is struggling to evolve because they're beholden to the mechanics of the franchise. And I don't want to see Playground basically have to stick to, this is Fable, so there has to be a button where you burp, and there has to be a button where you fart, and you got to do this because that's what Fable is. It's no, just use the name, set it in Albion, and just do what you want to do with the game. Is that that's kind of what I want them to,
It's kind of what they did with Prey, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah. Obviously, Fable would also fall under the reboot category. And the big sci-fi, the other thing that I think of is, what's the initiative working on? The self-claimed, quadruple A studio that Microsoft built in Santa Monica that basically started hiring, some of the best developers from around the video game industry to build something. And the question for me always was, is it Perfect Dark or is it something brand new? And... thinking about big sci-fi world, which obviously could be Halo. I mean, Halo kind of fits all two of those at least. Well, even three, because they've talked about how this Halo is going more to its classic roots, right? And it's a big fantasy world because of the rings, but then it's also a sci-fi adventure. But Perfect Dark obviously would be big sci-fi, and it would fall under the reboot category. I mean, what has it been? 15 years since there's been a new Perfect Dark?
I don't know anything about Perfect Dark.
Neither do I.
you?
All I
Have you
know is the
played it?
main character's name is Joanna Dark, and I think there's like an alien invasion or something. I didn't play Perfect. Here's the thing: I didn't play Perfect Dark, and I didn't play through the campaign of Perfect Dark Zero, so I don't like. I mean, I get like people say it should be a new IP, but like I don't know. Like maybe they see something in Perfect Dark that they want to bring back. Maybe it just be
There's
like
also
Fable.
the advantage of like you don't have to market it. Like, even though I've never played Perfect Dark and I don't know anything about Perfect Dark, I know it's protagonist and I know it's sci-fi. So like some of the marketing has already been done, you know. So there is value in using an established IP. Like, Fable's fantasy, Perfect Dark is sci-fi. Like, but if I told you like just make up a game like, I don't know, just can't even think of a game, like just any random cool sounding word, like I don't know, just think of a word, Rand. Think of a word.
Think of what word?
I don't know. Think of any word. Like make up a game name.
Banjo and Kazooie.
I knew one.
I don't know.
I don't know. Just but the point. Okay, let's take Control for example.
Okay.
Like when they announced Control, you have no idea what that game's about. You have no idea what it means. You don't know if it's sci-fi. You don't know what it is. Like or Quantum Break even. Like when it's a new IP, it's hard because you don't know in your head what it could be about. But like Perfect Dark, you know that it's going to be sci-fi. Fable, you know that it's going to be fantasy. So some of that marketing distance has already been covered. So there is value in doing a reboot, but I can appreciate people saying like they want something new and stuff like that. But these games are essentially going to be new. They're going to be complete reimaginings of what the originals were, and because a lot of people just didn't play those games. Like I know, like a lot of Xbox fans really love Fable, but they weren't like mega blockbusters. You know, they're pretty much can be blank canvases for a whole new audience. You know,
that's kind of my point. It's like I think that they're just gonna be. I think it's just gonna be Perfect Dark and Fable in name, and it'll essentially be here's Albion and here's Joanna Dark, and that's it, and it'll be its own thing.
Phil was also teasing MechAssault.
Yeah, he
saying
did.
that he'd like to bring back MechAssault one day. So maybe that could be one.
I don't mean like.
Again, you know exactly what MechAssault means, like what it represents. Like you can tell from the name. Like, and the first ever Gamescom I did when I was a young, wide-eyed game journalist back in the day, I said to Aaron Greenberg when the first time I met him was, and he was like, he asked for my feedback about their event and stuff, and I was like, what you guys need is more nostalgia. You know, what you guys need is building up and making established IP that people can rely on is going to be like a quality experience. And it's kind of like people always joke about the Halo, Forza, Gears Trinity, but that they do that just because you know what you're getting with those IPs, you know, and you want to see those sequels. And they've had some wins there with like the fact that they've got Outer Worlds now under their belt. That's going to be big. That's going to be a big deal because you know what the Outer Worlds 2 is going to be like. It's just going to be more of the same but better sci-fi space stuff with like a sort of Fallout New Vegas edge. So that's a big win for Microsoft. But that's if they do another Outer Worlds, that's like what? I mean, 2 or 3 years away.
I think Outer Worlds 2 is a little bit further away. I think their Pillars game, that's their Skyrim thing, AAA whatever, like that's after Grounded. I think
they'll do another one.
Here's the thing: I think all these games are going to get revealed this year. I think Microsoft's basically going to load everything in the clip, anything that's coming out in the next 3 years, and they're going to shoot it. They're basically going to be like, look, when you look back at like Sony and what they did, like Sony's E3 2016 like killed it. They showed off God of War, they showed off Spider-Man, they showed off Days Gone, they showed off Death Stranding, they showed off Last of Us 2? No, but they showed off Last of Us 2 at the end of 2016. Basically, Sony gave you a roadmap of these are all the games coming from our first party for the rest of the generation. We're investing in first party so you can feel confident in investing in our platform. And I think Xbox kind of, they need that too. And I've always said, like, for a while I thought, well, no, I don't want to see anything that's more than a year out. But I've changed my tune. Like, I want to see what Xbox is working on, not only a year out, but 2 years out to 3 years out.
Do you know why? Do you know why you can change your tune now?
Why?
Is because back in the middle of the gen, if Microsoft was announcing a game that was 2 or 3 years out, there was a high chance it'd be cancelled because they were working with third-party developers who had like other sorts of constraints, and there was budget constraints and stuff like that. But now all those games are going to be made by first party. They're going to stick with them through to completion. You know they're going to be finished, and you know they're going to be budgeted for properly. And it's not like the developers are third party and they're being pulled in different directions. Microsoft has full control of those studios and what they do. And they know exactly what their roadmaps are. There's no politics. There's no politics like we're going to potentially artificially delay this game so we can get another year's worth of cash flow out of Microsoft. There's not going to be anything like that. So you can rely a little bit more on games that are further out now than you've ever been able to before with Xbox Game Studios. And that is something that Sony has had for years that Xbox can only just do now. And that's a big deal, I think.
Yeah. So what do you guys think in the chat? What do you think Shinobi is teasing here with his big sci-fi worlds and reboots and big fantasy worlds? Let me know what you think. I think most people will probably come to the same conclusion. But at this point, it's like the hardware stuff is out there. Like, we've seen Series X. We've watched people put Series X together. You know? Essentially, we've seen demos. We've seen the quick resume. We've seen the loading differences, of course, of a last-gen game. Obviously, we need to still I want to see what a game looks like on Series X and what it's doing. It's time for the hardware stuff to just kind of slip into the background and just it's about games now. Like, it's about the first party. Like, you bought all these studios in 2018, and we know games take time, so it's like, all right, like, let's start seeing what you got underneath, the covers there. Like, what am I going to be playing at launch? What am I going to be playing in 2021? What do you got planned for 2022? Give me the lowdown. Give me the breakdown. Like, sell me on why, like, I should invest, or why anybody should invest any more in your ecosystem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's time to do that. And I think we will, and I think it's going to be, I don't think we have long to wait. I think there's something happening in May. They just shifted the April event to May, which is good because...
Well, it's in line with what we're hearing about Surface, because we heard, like, on the Central, that Surface had an event planned for April, but that slipped too. So, like, if this is, like, a general sort of pivot about, like, because they would have had these plans for, like, showing off this, presumably the Surface Book 3 or whatever in April, but then given what's going on in the world, kind of can't do that anymore, so it is what it is, I guess.
Shout out to Gunstar. He says, do you think Xbox has secured a big license? I would mean, he probably like saying like something like Spider-Man that Sony has, or, like the Marvel game that Nintendo had. The rumors of Silent Hill being licensed to Sony. Do you think Microsoft has licensed something, at least like big, from another?
I think they could do something like Godfall maybe, and work with a big developer on some concept game.
I think that's a given. I mean, with Xbox Global Publishing, I think 100% you're going to see something like that. I think what Gunstar is more talking about is like, an exclusive Marvel game. Or something along those lines.
I don't think so. Personally.
Yeah, I don't think so
I'm getting
either.
Really drunk now.
And
I'm drinking. Sorry, go on.
So Geekhead188 says, "What about Series X and Lockhart?" Which is interesting because I have this as a topic. The Xbox One X is basically selling now for $299. It's cheap. Jez and Matt Piscatella tweeted out that he thinks this is a stock clearance and that they aren't going to be replenished, and basically implying that they are stopping making Xbox One X's.
Microsoft does this. They do it with Surface too. Like the Surface Book 2 has had a big sale recently because the Book 3 is around the corner. And also the book 3 got benchmarked recently and that leaked. So like the fact that they discounted the book 2 and the benchmarks leaked pretty much indicates that they're selling off the stock because the book 3 is around the corner. And I want to believe, man. I want to believe, because this whole Lockhart thing keeps me awake at night because it's still not been revealed. And, you know, it was right there, man. It was right there with all the Xbox Series X stuff that we leaked accurately, by the way. Dude, I'm getting a bit drunk right now.
I can tell.
I can tell.
You better not slip some stuff, Jazz. We don't get us all in trouble.
Don't you worry, Rand. I got you, man. You know, Rand, you're a top bloke.
Thank you, Jazz.
I really enjoy doing this podcast with you. And I enjoy everyone who listens in and all the nice things people say on Twitter.
Yes.
I'm feeling truly blessed in this moment.
And now we're slurring our speech.
Oh no!
Yeah,
oh, no.
Yeah. People listen from all across the globe, Jazz, to hear what you say, because you're the one whose opinions are very nice. I'm the ones who has the preconceived notions, and you know, I'm not an easy to listen to person, apparently.
Well, you shouldn't be so mean to Nintendo.
I guess I shouldn't be, but
you know, you could. There are Nintendo games you could try. Like, have you ever tried like Fire Emblem, or like they announced Xenoblade Remaster? Like, do you like the looks of any of those games?
I might. I want to play Astral Chain and stuff. And Sam says, "Hey Jazz, is this a good time for me to ask you for stuff?"
What did he say?
Sam says, "Hey Jazz, is this a good time for me to ask you for stuff?" Because you're gonna say,
well, possibly, but I'm not. I've closed Slack because I have the weekend off and Monday. So.
So
you'll have to DM me.
Back to the Xbox One X is $299. I've gotten a bunch of questions about this, and I think I'll probably make a video about it. But now when we first started hearing about the 2 system rumor, like back when you first reported it at the end of 2018, I said I thought that when Lockhart came out at $299, $349, $249, whatever the price is going to be, that it basically is going to replace the Xbox One X. That Microsoft will stop making the X because Lockhart will be a all-around better machine, and that you don't need to sell the X anymore. The One X, that is. Because like you have a machine that's basically going to be the same price, and it's going to be better. And here you have it. Matt Piscatella, MPD analyst, basically saying, yeah, they're basically getting rid of stock. He doesn't expect any replenishments. It's $299, which is, you know, a $200 price drop from, you know, it's supposed to be like $499. I think, you know, I really do think by the end of the year, you won't really be able to find a 1X in stores. And Lockhart will be the replacement. I think it's coming. Now, the question is, when is it going to get revealed? I think they talk about Lockhart when they are going to talk about the price. Because that is Lockhart's true purpose. Like, Series X is about the best. It's about 4K. It's about 60 to 120 frames. You know, it's that premium gaming machine, and you want to lead with that. You lead with the, the best version of the thing that you're selling. You don't lead with the cheaper, less capable machine. So everything surrounding Xbox Scarlet, which was the family of devices, is basically Xbox Series X, has been about this beast of machine. You don't want to talk about Lockhart's true purpose, which is the price, until you can talk about the price. So whenever they're willing to say, hey, Series X is this amount of money, and look at all the stuff, and look at all the crazy things you can do, and all the games that you can play on it, like third party, all that stuff, Lockhart will come in and be like, if you don't have a 4K television, or if you don't have $500 to spend on it, you can get, Lockhart, whatever it's going to be, Series S, Series E, you can basically spend $300 and, use it until you want to upgrade later on. That's how I see it. Because I see some people thinking that when Phil said they wanted to be agile on price, he meant that if PS5 got all the way down to $400, that Series X would match at $400. I think there's 0% chance Series X matches at $400 if PS5 gets that low. That would be an insane loss for Microsoft to take on that console. Yeah. And then, the whole point of Lockhart is, you can sell the higher-end system because of it. So, Yeah, I still think Lockhart's incoming, and I think they're going to talk about it when they're able to talk about the price.
It's all about the price. It's all about putting PlayStation 5 in the middle and being like, well, you can get a 1080p next gen experience. They'll push the the HD aspect of it because a lot of people, they just won't want to upgrade to a 4K television. They're still like a decent 4K television with HDR, like real HDR and all those extra features. They're cost prohibitive. You know, like for a lot of people, Xbox Series X just won't make any sense.
Yeah,
For a lot of people, PlayStation 5 won't make a lot of sense. So to put a console out there that can meet people where their monitors are is a really smart move if they position it and market it properly.
yeah. Some people say that they think Lockhart's a lie. Rock City Boy says, you know what's funny? Lockhart would be 4 teraflops, which is replacing a 6 teraflop machine, but Xbox fanboys gloss over that in the T-flop argument. Well, a 4 teraflop Navi card is a little bit different than a 6 teraflop, what is it, a Polaris? Different architecture. The 4 teraflop one's more efficient, which basically comes out to almost be the same power. But then you're also forgetting the brand new CPU. You went from Jaguar to Zen 2, 8 cores, 16 threads, the mechanical hard drive to an SSD, the GDRR4 RAM to GDR6 RAM. I mean,
it's a better system. There's no questioning that Lockhart's overall a better system than the Xbox One X. There's no question in it. Like the fact that like all of our Xbox Series X information was completely accurate. That just leads me to believe that all the Lockhart information we had was accurate. And when you really get into it, like you say, the whole GCN teraflops comparisons and stuff like that. Even then, it's like it's a better system, like the SSD and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know.
Jay Slayer says, Rand, Phil said when they were done, that they are done talking about hardware there. No, he didn't. He didn't say they were done. He said that they still have some hardware and service announcements to make. Cali Rex says, this really doesn't make sense to sell 2 systems. Why not just sell the 1X at the point and then sell a new system? I mean, Microsoft have been selling 2 systems since 2017. I mean, this has kind of been their strategy.
Selling 3.
I mean, 3 systems, but I don't know. Like I don't see why Lockhart is such like a weird concept to wrap your like head around.
It's no different to Samsung having different models of phones. It's no different. And the thing is, because the Xbox One architecture allows for different, and this feeds into smart delivery, right? Because the Xbox One architecture allows for like smart delivery stuff, where it can be like, okay, this version has ray tracing, this version doesn't. This version uses the NVMe drive, this version doesn't. Because the Xbox One architecture allows for that, and the Windows kernel allow for that, and because UWP allows for that, they can make those kinds of systems and make those kind of hardware decisions in a similar fashion to that. Like, you know, you release an Android 10 phone, it can still run Android apps from like yesteryear, or you like, you know, I can run an MS-DOS game on my Windows 10 computer if I want to. It's just that sort of that emphasis on legacy content is something that gives Microsoft a big strength, and ultimately it's something they can't ignore because they can't afford to ignore it, because they need the biggest developer platform possible in a world where Sony is dominating them. So like they can't sacrifice the Xbox One install base or the Xbox One architecture, because they need those developers ultimately. They need those games. So it's a different proposition, and both systems will have unique things about them that make them great. And there doesn't need to be a fanboy argument ultimately.
Yeah. Anyways, like it's gonna look really weird if Lockhart like gets canceled at the last second or never existed, Jez, because originally everybody reported it, then they said it was canceled, then it was back, and there's been nothing. I mean, I've heard of developers working on it, so I know like the specs are out there. People know what they are. Like I don't know. If they pulled the plug on it, like they'd be flushing a lot of cash. down the tube. And
But
I think
that's the thing about Microsoft, though. They can afford to do that.
they can, but
They had
even
like,
but even now though, Jez, with the way the world is, I think Lockhart's like more important than ever. Like a cheaper
yeah,
next gen
that
system,
too.
like it makes even more sense now.
There's plenty of analysts, and I know we should be skeptical of quote unquote stock analysts, but there's a lot of analysts out there who said the reason the Wii blew up and then contracted, it blew up and contracted exactly in line with the way the economy was during the credit crunch. So like everyone was like, oh well, I'll go for the cheaper system because they were worried about money. And the 2008 financial crisis was a big deal. And in a world where everyone's worried about money, the cheaper console looks like a very valuable proposition. And like even though like we're not even close to being out of the woods with this whole virus thing yet, not even close to being out of the woods. And then even then, the economic impacts will be felt well into the winter. So as when you're thinking about that, a console like Lockhart makes even more sense. Like a console like the bloody Xbox One All Digital Edition, for God's sake, that's like sold out everywhere because it's so cheap. And there's people working from home who don't typically game. Like Microsoft's preparing their whole sort of operation for a shift in attitudes towards money, for a shift in attitude towards working from home and the way we spend our leisure time and stuff like that. This like current crisis is going to have ramifications that we don't even know about yet. So I think Microsoft having an ace in every sleeve is a good strategy to have.
Yeah. We got a question from JD Gamer. It says, "Can you really sell the Xbox Series X for more than the PS5 with so many people confused about the level of power performance difference? Certainly confused PS5 PS fans. As long as Microsoft demonstrates that Series X is worth the extra $100 if there is that difference, then yeah. If they can't, well, that's on Microsoft. So we just kind of got to wait and see how these all the reveals and everything are going to shape up." And Lauren says, "Hey, things like VRS and sampler feedback will make 4K checkerboard a possibility on Lockhart and worth getting it." Yeah. Let's see. The Cyberpunk thing, Jez. What'd you think of this? They had this whole like investors thing. They put out like the sales of Witcher 3 and like the digital versus physical and what platform was the lead dominant, and they talked about Cyberpunk. Basically, that they don't expect there to be a delay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the big thing was they mentioned basically how on Xbox One, Xbox Series X, they were going to do smart delivery, of course, which we already knew, which is Microsoft's way of if you buy the game on Xbox One and you're playing it on Series X, it's downloading the right game. You get the upgrade for free. It's pretty similar to how Xbox One and Xbox One X works right now, where like you just get the upgrade for free. But they didn't really talk about Sony's plans, but they did mention that there would be a next-gen SKU for Cyberpunk. Is there a possibility that Sony is not going to offer some sort of cross-buy scenario that PS5 games, even though PS5's back compat, and they've said it's back compat, that if you wanted an upgraded version of Cyberpunk, that essentially you'd have to pay $60 for it, whereas on Xbox, you just get it for free? Is that something that realistically could happen?
Well, I'm wary of wading into this conversation because I don't want to upset anyone. But the fact of the matter is, Sony and Microsoft have a financial incentive to offer two different versions of the same game because they get more money. Like, there's a potential for someone to double dip, and like it's kind of like if I have to buy Cyberpunk twice to get the better version later, that's good because it means they get more money. They get the 30% or whatever it is, and everyone's happy. But at the same time, PC gamers don't have to pay for a whole new SKU just to upgrade the resolution. So it's also a bit shitty to do to consumers to like make them pay for a whole new version when really all you're doing is flipping a graphics setting, So I think the reason that CD Projekt Red didn't say what Sony are doing is because simply they don't know. They don't know, and they don't have official information about what Sony plans to do when it comes to different SKUs of the same game. I would like to hope that Sony would allow developers to, offer the same game with just high resolution or better whatever for the same price. But at the same time, I do appreciate this argument that games are getting more expensive to make, but the price of them hasn't really changed in like a million years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Ultimately, we don't know. We just have to wait for Sony to say what their plans are and stuff like that. But it is cool. But this is the thing about Microsoft being so upfront and out of the gate, is that they can kind of set these narratives, right? So Microsoft CD Projekt Red was very, very aggressive in setting the narrative that we don't think gamers should have to pay twice to receive a high resolution version or whatever. And they're very, very, very aggressive in setting that narrative because they have a very pro-consumer image. And I guess they just have a very moral way of approaching these things. Whereas, like, you can imagine Activision would love to sell another SKU of the same game.
Of course they would. Rockstar would. All the developers would love
it
to resell the games with the upgrades because that means more money from them. But they both did not allow it. To their credit, Xbox and PlayStation did not allow developers to charge for PS4 Pro and Xbox One X upgrades because it didn't make sense because we're in the same generation. So Microsoft, we already know Microsoft. It's optional with Microsoft. Like, you can use smart delivery, but we don't know what the other part is. Like, you assume since it's a choice that essentially Microsoft's going to leave it up to devs, and that the devs might have the ability to sell next gen upgrades as a separate product. And Microsoft's just going to basically push everything onto them, being like, listen, we gave them the ability to do this for free. They just basically chose not to. And CD Projekt Red is out there right away, day one, being like, we believe you shouldn't play twice, and we're going to use smart delivery. So, So essentially, there must be some publishers out there, developers, that have told Microsoft that they would like to sell their stuff. And this is Microsoft's like, all right, we're going to hedge our bets and be like, we're going to provide this service for free, but then we're going to make sure everybody knows we gave you the technology to give the games to free, because if you sell them, then all the bad PR is going to be on you. It's not going to be on us, right?
Yep.
And you have to wonder, like, I know Sony was doing cross-buy way before Microsoft was. You buy a PS3 game, you get it on the Vita, buy a PS4 game, get it on PS3, PS Vita. Like, they were doing cross-buy before Microsoft was doing cross-buy with the PC, like Windows 10, Xbox One stuff. So it's like, will they redo that? I mean, if you buy Last of Us 2, and I'm assuming it'll be back compat, of course, on the PS5, but if they do some extra stuff, like add ray tracing or whatever they do for a PS5 version that they can't do on the PS4 version, like, are they going to sell the game again? Because if they sell the game again, it could probably sell millions of copies again at full price, rather than like, well, maybe more people will buy it at the cheaper price from back compat. So it's definitely an interesting conversation. I wonder how it's all going to play out. You would think that, I mean, maybe Sony will do exactly what Microsoft did. Like, well, we gave developers the choice, and if they want to use it, they can. If they don't, they don't. And they put it on them,
Yeah.
That's definitely going to be pretty interesting to see what comes out from all that. So, yeah, you know what? Let's see. What other thing here? Oh, yeah, Google Stadia is free for 2 months. Phil Harrison announced that the other day. It's free for 2 months if you want to get Stadia Pro. This isn't like the free base version, from my understanding. I could be wrong, and I should probably ask MM2K for that, because his whole Twitter feed is just nonstop Stadia stuff. Basically, you can sign up and you can get 2 months free, and you can play it on your, on your browser. Or if you want to get the controller, you can play it on Chromecast. Are you gonna try out Stadia, Jez?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually downloaded it, but then I was just like, why even bother? No, it's all the games that I already own. I don't want to play it again with lag. Like, what is even the point? That was what I was thinking. So I installed it, thought about it, then uninstalled it.
Here's the thing for me. I'll try out Stadia when Stadia has something worth actually using on the platform that is only on that platform. So as soon as whatever the game they're building that they got the Sony Santa Monica head for, or their other studios, and that game looks interesting, I'll check it out because like I'd be interested in it. Like other than that, like I own all the games that Stadia already has. There's no point for me to do it. So, anyways, I think that's I think we hit almost 2 hours, so that'll be the podcast. Obviously, we're going to take some questions, so if you have anything you want to ask, make sure you put it down in the chat and we'll get to it. We want to thank everybody for being here, and if you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Follow me and Jez on Twitter, and shout out to everybody listening to this later on iTunes and Google Play and all that stuff. You guys are incredible. Seems that we have listeners from all across the world, which makes Jez happy, as well as the whiskey he's currently drinking. So, thank you guys for being here, and we're gonna answer some questions now. Man, people really spreading the FUD in the chat. I see Christopher Hart. I know you're in the Iron Lords podcast all the time, talking about that stuff. I'll give you a little time out here for spreading that nonsense. Let's see. 9Live says, did you talk about Game Pass in Japan? Jez mentioned it a little bit. Phil had that little speech he gave in a video. I mean, part of their... hopefully Xbox can take off in Japan. I think xCloud would be the catalyst for that. But I'm not really holding my breath for Microsoft and Xbox to kind of take off in Japan.
I will say, like, the mechanism that xCloud brings... not xCloud, Game Pass brings... is basically free cash for developers, right?
Mm.
And for a lot of smaller independent developers, the idea of getting some free cash and free exposure for their games makes that alone worth moving to that platform. And the fact that we've seen tons of games hit the Windows 10 store, which previously literally nobody was using, proves that xCloud can be a catalyst for getting developers interested. So for me, the hope there is less about cracking Japan, which I think is impossible, and it's more to do with getting more support for Japanese developers. Because if Microsoft's gonna fund them to move to the Windows Store or whatever, it could lead to more games. It could lead to, like, a change in mentality about what kind of games Xbox has. Because right now, if you want to play Japanese games, you're pretty much guaranteed that you have to use Sony or you have to use Nintendo to get them. But this could have good impacts for fans of Japanese games in the West.
Yeah.
And that's mainly the way I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah. We got a question from Jackman. He says, do we think there will be more studios? That's a tough question. I think there'll at least be one. And I think if they do announce it, it'll probably be at one of these upcoming events. Probably the big one at June.
I think there will be new studios, yeah.
Yeah, so we both think yes. Thanero says, hey, has 343 said anything about who is doing the music for Halo Infinite?
About what? Sorry?
Who's composing Halo Infinite, doing the music?
I believe they have. It's not
It's not the
Marty O'Donnell.
Yeah, it was not Marty O'Donnell. He was with Bungie. I don't think it's the guy who did the music for Halo 5. I could be wrong. And obviously, like, I don't know off the top of my head who is composing the music for Halo Infinite. Jez is going to look it up. James Rake says, hey, Ranjez, hope you and yours are both safe from the Rona. Thank you, and we hope you all are safe from the Rona as well. Greg wants to know, Rand and Jez, most hype games for yourselves. For the rest of the year? Most hype game for the rest of the year probably is Last of Us Part 2. And if not Last of Us Part 2, probably Halo Infinite. Jez?
Well, I'm pretty excited for Gears Tactics. I'm pretty excited for Minecraft Dungeons because it's the multiplayer game me and my friends are going to play. But the crown jewel's Cyberpunk, easily.
Cyberpunk, yeah. iDisney wants to know, Perfect Dark sounds okay, but wouldn't Shadowrun be so much cooler from the initiative?
No, this falls back onto the MechAssault IP problems. I believe the Shadowrun IP has similar problems to the MechAssault IP, in that, like, it's up in the air who has the rights to make games based on that right now. I think Yeah. So I think like if they do make a new Shadowrun, I think it's going to be ultimately whether Microsoft wants to go through the motions of securing whether they even have the rights to do that.
Right.
All those FASA sort of role-playing game IPs, they're all complicated in who owns what and where and who can do what with what. It's kind of weird. But I do agree that Shadowrun would be a cool game to bring back.
I would like Shadowrun to come back. I think Shadowrun's great. Personally, I don't know. As long I don't really care what the initiative's making as long as it's big, huge, and great. Doesn't really matter if it's Perfect Dark or Shadowrun or a new IP to me. Rohan Raddy says, I have a doubt. Why would most third-party developers choose the Xbox over PlayStation? PlayStation is a bigger install base. Well, I mean, that's why there are more games on PlayStation. There's more games on PC, too. Did anybody say developers would choose Xbox over PlayStation? I don't think any of us said that.
Microsoft has a lot of money and a lot of leverage. They can do things that Sony can't, like offer good rates on servers, offer good rates on just weird things like Microsoft Office. There's a lot of leverage Microsoft has that helps them offset their install base deficit. And on beyond that, they're very big in the US and UK. Like we always talk about like, oh, Sony's way bigger than Microsoft in Europe and they're way bigger around the world and stuff like that. But the same's true of Android, like an iPhone and stuff like that. Like iPhone has nowhere near the same install base as Android does. Like Android is so much bigger than iPhone, but no one talks about iPhone being a failure because it's really big in those core markets of US, UK, and stuff like that. So it's not directly comparable, but it's just an example of how like our perceptions can be skewed by certain figures and stuff. And developers can still make tens of millions of dollars on Xbox, and that is why developers still support Xbox. You don't just leave tens of millions of dollars lying around.
Yeah.
Like if you made a PlayStation game or a PC game, it's not that hard to just bring it to Xbox, which still has tens of millions of users, and you're going to make tens of millions of dollars. Like maybe it's not hundreds of millions of dollars, but it's still a lot of money. So,
yeah. So JD Gamer says, hey, what major Japanese studio game series would you like to come to Xbox, and would you want it to be completely exclusive or just exclusive content? Well, like if you're looking for just a game, I mean, I think like kind of the big game series that's not on Xbox, that's on, is like Persona or perhaps like Neo. Japanese studio, like if I'm saying like what's the one like I would want Microsoft to buy, probably from Software. Mainly because I know that would make people nuts if that happened.
oh yes, it would.
But yeah, what about you, Jez? Any particular Japanese studio or game series you'd want?
I want to see Lost Odyssey come back. I want to see Lost Odyssey 2. I think that franchise had a lot of potential, even if the first game wasn't super duper popular or whatever. I think like Microsoft kind of need it now. They need those kind of RPGs. And also, we live in an age where cloud computing is rising, and those sort of turn-based Japanese RPGs, they're going to be big. They're going to be big on xCloud, and they're going to be big in Japan. And having a Lost Odyssey 2 on xCloud when it's turn-based and lag isn't an issue, I think that could be like really awesome. So I'd like to see Microsoft get into that sort of arena again. Maybe even if it's not like Lost Odyssey 2, like work with some developer to make like a Japanese style RPG. Like those developers, there's an indie dev team making a Final Fantasy like game called I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. Ah man, but it's coming to Game Pass anyway. Do you remember, Rand?
No, I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Eye of Eternity or something like that. I don't know, but there's some idea Xbox sort of JRPG like coming, and I don't know. I think that could be cool. I like Lost Odyssey.
Right. D.I. Almighty Spartan God says, for all you Xbox guys' sake, PlayStation 5 better be 500. Because if it's not, then, well, another murder again. Let's see and wait, though. See, I don't know. Like, I think no matter what the price PlayStation 5 is going to sell Xbox, whether it's 500 or 400. I don't think it really matters.
I agree.
Yeah, you know what? I got something stuck in my throat right now, so it's kind of hard for me to talk, and I need to kind of clear my throat, which is going to be hard reading these questions. So I think we're just, oh, man.
Read one more, and then I'll answer it.
You read it, because I got to really clear my throat.
I can't see it.
One Bad Mother says, great show. Appreciate how even-keeled and non-toxic you both are. Good industry info, Jez. Rand, never become open-minded about Pokemon. Thank you, brother. Let me see if I can find a question here. Rock wants to know, hey, do you see Half-Life Alyx coming to PS5? Go, Jez.
Ah, man, that's a tough one because I don't know if Valve necessarily wants to support the PlayStation, but at the same time, it helps the paradigm that they're trying to push. I want to say that yes, it could come to PlayStation 5, but at the same time, it's like Valve. Like it's literally hard to tell what they're thinking. Their thinking is sometimes that Valve has a flat organization, right? So like they can seem a little bit chaotic at times. Honestly, don't know is the answer. It depends what the spec of the PS5 VR is. Like, do they make it high end or do they make it affordable? You know?
Yeah. Oh man, I needed to do that. Holy cow! If you would have heard me, like, oh man, thank God I got that out of my throat. We have a super chat from Snake Eyes. He says, do you guys know about the game Vampire Bloodlines: The Masquerade? If so, are you anticipating it? I loved the original PC game. It was super cool RPG with tons of options, but it was a buggy mess. The trailer looked amazing. I actually saw that on the store the other day.
I actually previewed Vampire Bloodlines 2, I think it's called. I never played the original, but I appreciate that like it's a cult hit. It had like a lot of people love it because of how open-ended it was and how like your decisions really mattered. And you know, there aren't a lot of cool vampire games. There was Vampire, but it wasn't great. But I previewed that game, Bloodlines 2 at, I want to say Gamescom, but I can't remember if it was E3 or not. Gamescom and E3 kind of blend together for me sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was kind of buggy what we were shown, and I wasn't super impressed with the animations. It looked like a bit of an indie game. So, but I do know that they delayed it heavily, probably based on some of the feedback from that preview event. So hopefully they can get it to a place where it looks a bit more modern. I might go back and play the original just to like see what it's like and see what the big deal is. But I'm all about RPGs where your decisions matter, which is one reason why I'm looking forward so much to Wasteland 3.
Yeah, I know you're looking forward to that. We got a question from Rain City Gamers. Hey, is there a chance one next-gen console gets delayed while the other doesn't? So PS5 comes out, Xbox Series X gets delayed, or Xbox Series X comes out and PS5 gets delayed. I think that would be tough for the other system getting delayed. Like I think Sony could probably overcome that just because of the strength of their brand. But I think if Xbox were to come out a year later, like
that would be bad.
I think that would be incredibly bad. I think it would be bad for Sony too. Don't get me wrong. Like, I just think they could potentially overcome that. I think they're both going to come out this year. Unless, like, the world devolves into some Mad Max dystopia, you know? I think they're both going to come out. Well, yeah, I guess. You never know, right? Yeah, I don't know. I just think they're both going to come out. I just can't imagine one of them slipping and the other not. You know? Like, they're both probably being built right now. Or at least, you know, some of the parts being made. And
well, China's pretty much reopened its economy, right? And a lot of the supply lines and manufacturing takes place in China for this sort of stuff. And China were able to get so far ahead of the virus just because of the way their government's made up. Like, you saw these like crazy stories about China basically forcing people to stay at home. Meanwhile, you just can't do that in the West. You can't force people to stay at home if they don't want to. They just don't. They just won't do it. Like I always see these pictures from London and like other places around the world where like people are just still going outside and just ignoring all this shit that's going on. So, but China's like, if you don't do what the government says, you get disappeared. It's a little bit different there, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is.
So, yeah, Microsoft and Sony both think that it's going to be fine, and they haven't adjusted. They have to let their shareholders know if things are going to go bad with things like that. They have to let their shareholders know. Like, I think it might even be like a legal obligation or whatever, but they have to let shareholders know if they're expecting things to go bad. And so far, it's looking like that isn't the case. So,
yeah. And shout out to the Darge Knight. He says, "Good show, fellas. Enjoy the Easter weekend. You too, brother. Hope you have a good one as well." Let's see. I think that's it. Somebody called me a racist in chat, so I had to.
That's weird.
I had to time somebody out, of course. Like I don't know what's up with that. Anyways, I think that's gonna be it for the podcast. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, just hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, follow me and Jez on Twitter, and I hope everybody has a great weekend with their family. If you're playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, enjoy it. I know James Shields isn't because he doesn't have a PlayStation to play it on, and he already told me he doesn't want to know anything about it. So I don't know. I should probably tease him, because he loves Final Fantasy VII, but he's gonna wait. So yeah, have a good weekend, guys, and we'll be back next week, hopefully. Wednesday or Friday, depending on whenever we feel like doing it. So yeah, enjoy your gaming. Later.